I'm going to show you how to make an absolutely perfect steak. You'll have to start with a really good cut of beef. I'm using a ribeye steak that I've cut in half. It has lots of marbling and fat, which will add a lot of flavor and texture to the meat. I have salt, pepper, butter, olive oil, and at the end I'm going to finish off the steaks with a marsala wine pan sauce. But to start with, we have to prepare our pepper and salt rub. And what I've done here is I've ground about a tablespoon of fresh ground pepper and about a tablespoon of salt. And now this is going to create a rub. I'm going to coat the steaks in olive oil, rub them with the dry rub, and put them aside until I'm ready to cook them in about 2 hours. Coated them lightly with olive oil. And now I'm going to dip each one into my dry rub. You can see that it isn't, I'm going to rub that in later, one on each side. And then when it's all on there, and just rub it in, and it's going to just sit until I'm ready to cook. I left the steaks in the refrigerator for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Now it's time to cook them. We're getting ready to have our dinner. I have a cast iron skillet on the stove, very high heat. I've lightly coated the bottom of the skillet with grapeseed oil. You can use any kind of vegetable oil, not olive oil, but I do prefer grapeseed because it has a higher smoke point. And now what we want to do is to add the steaks to the pan. The beautiful sizzling sound that they make. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to brown them on both sides until they're just at the right point, and then that will be all that will be done on the stove. I'm preparing the mushrooms for the mushroom marsala sauce, which will finish off the steak after they've grilled on top of the stove and then finish off in the oven. I'm cranking the heat up pretty high. As you can see, they're taking on a nice color, and the fat along the edges is starting to brown. That's what I'm looking for, the browning of the fat. They're probably going to take about 5 more minutes on top of the stove, and then we'll finish them off in the oven. I'm adding a little dollop of butter to each of the steaks, about a teaspoon, generous teaspoon. Turned off the heat, and now they'll go directly into a preheated 400-degree oven. I have the cast iron skillet on flame now. It's fairly high, stirring up around the foam that's formed from cooking it in the oven. I'm going to add my chopped mushrooms and herbs. Just kind of stir it around. It won't take very long for this to cook. And then once I feel that the mushrooms are at the appropriate cooking point, I'll add about 2 tablespoons of Williams-Sonoma marsala sauce. Now, if you don't have that, that's fine. You don't have to use it. That's what I'm using. You could just cook this and call it a day. You could add a little wine to it. You can do all sorts of fun and different things. But as you see, you can see my mushrooms are cooking down very nicely. So it's time to add my sauce. I never thought I would be using bottled sauce, but this is really, has been a wonderful find. It does a beautiful job. Once I incorporate my mushrooms into the sauce that I added, there's one more step, and then it's complete, and that is you have to stir in, I know, butter, about a tablespoon of butter. It's going to give it a rich, glossy finish and a beautiful flavor, and you can already see the color coming up, just beautiful. And then I'm going to plate it. Now, remembering that this pan has been in the oven, so don't pick it up with barehanded. Put a swirl of your sauce on the bottom of your plate. Place your steak on top of the sauce. Put more sauce over the top of the steak. Let's throw just a little garnish on it, and we're ready to serve.